When I was a child, my parents and teachers taught me about personal boundaries, which I still think of in terms of my, quote, swimsuit area. Partly because it's on a trip to the pool that we learn about these boundaries. We change clothes in a room with naked people, probably with one of our parents, and we learn not to stare and point at others in their untanned vulnerability, including that one really old dude in every changing room who really wants to be seen. Ladies, I honestly don't know if there's an equivalent, and I don't want to know. In modern times, the changing rooms have notices saying not to pretend to talk on your cell phone while taking sneaky pictures in the locker room. I think, wow, I'm really glad I grew up in the 1980s. Then we're at the pool or the beach, and everyone is in this strange state between dressed and undressed. You're sort of in clothes as you step up. But then as you wade or lower yourself in, there's that moment of heat when the water does its cold water greeting and you know that the water does not respect your boundaries. The water has known your nakedness. As children going for a swim, we were told to wait 40 minutes after lunch before getting in so that lunch would stay inside of our bodies. And we sometimes see clever signs saying something like, our ool doesn't have any pee in it. But kids pee in the pool anyway. For children, it's a chance to experiment with prohibitions. Will something happen? Will the Olis show up? No, except the person next to you might ask if the water got warmer. And not to get disgusting here, or maybe it's too late. But when we actually think about it, we know that all of the water in the pool and the ocean, it's all urine. Every drop has been drank and sprayed by whales and jellyfish, elephants, orangutans, cats and dogs and squirrels and people. All of the world's water has been pee at some point. And even His Imperial Majesty, the Pope, can't bless that away. Babies get baptized, and the water in that baptismal font has passed through bodies. Maybe Jesus. Maybe Muhammad. Mother Teresa, Sitting Bull. Maybe Madonna. And a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm not here to gross you out. All of the world's water has passed through animals. But nature also cleans the water with evaporation into the clouds above, and also those water treatment facilities that we call plants. Rain comes down and passes through roots and accumulates in berries and coconuts, tomatoes, onions. Nature's way of purifying the water. I would not drink a cup of rainwater from my area. But an apple grows in my front yard, and I will eat it because I know that nature has cleaned that water. Ironically, the water in our baptismal fountains has been cleaned by forbidden fruit. Our bodies also process water. We are like power plants, factories. We constantly need clean water coming in and constantly have wastewater coming out. Not just our swimsuit areas, but every inch of our bodies. Our parents and teachers taught us that our bodies are solid, that our skin is a boundary between what's inside and what's outside. But none of us here is made out of diamond. Our skin is a bag for holding water, and that bag has millions of holes in it. Right now, water is passing through my skin. You are breathing it. Water is passing through your skin. I am breathing it. We are exchanging water right now. When you smell someone, that's not a supernatural spirit in the air. It's water from their body, carrying flakes of their skin, part of their physical body going into your nose and lungs and blood. That is how connected we are. Also, sometimes I spit when I talk, which is why the podium's way back here. You're in the no splash zone. Our parents and teachers taught us about boundaries, but in a biological sense, those boundaries do not exist. We are all continuous, connected by water. Not just people, all organic life, plants, trees, fungi, bacteria, animals, Keith Richards, cockroaches, fish, that smelly guy you sat next to on the bus, who might have been Keith Richards in disguise. The Ojibwa scholar and activist Melissa Nelson wrote, "We are not separate from the environment, we are the environment. With every bite of food that we eat, every drop of water we drink, every breath of air we inhale, we are on the fluid edge. The fluid edge of inside and outside. Me and the environment, the person and the planet, the individual and humanity." Water respects no boundaries, especially not the artificial and cultural boundaries that we make up for ourselves. We might want to close ourselves off from nature, transcend the flesh. But water is inside of us, a reminder of how grounded we are. Rivers do not care about our imaginary borders. And even if we built a diamond wall against Mexico, those rivers would defy us by still connecting us. We are all from and of water. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, an old funeral saying goes. But our bodies do not begin with ashes and dust. Human life begins in water. We all started out as single-celled organisms in a primordial seed. And here I mean all life collectively, and each of us personally at conception. And millions of years later, the water in a pregnant mother's womb maintains that same salinity as the oceans at the beginning of life long ago. Then, each one of us here, during gestation, we evolved into some little tadpole-looking creature. And then into some kind of frog-like thing, before we started to look primate, except with gills on our ears. And then labor begins. Birth begins with the breaking of water. I love that expression. It sounds so sacred, so sacramental. Water breaks. Of course, it didn't seem very sacramental when it happened. I was half ready to say, send the midwife home. We need an exorcist. But the water breaks, a new life begins, and two lives end. The social lives of the parents. And then straight away after birth, many of us were whisked away for a religious cleaning. Having spent 10 months in mother water, we get sprinkled with father-son water. I was baptized as an infant, held by a nun, who then ran off with a man because she realized she wanted to make a baby. I would like to think of that as the first time I caused a religious conversion. Then I went to seminary and realized I don't believe in infant baptism at all. And when Jackson, our firstborn, was a baby, I'll never forget it, Elizabeth and I visited a church, and this beautiful priest, the most beautiful priest I've ever seen, a lady priest in the Episcopal tradition, she beckoned me over to ask about something. I walked over holding the baby, and while she was talking, she reached back behind her, and she dipped her fingers in the baptismal fountain, and then suddenly flicked it at her. And as a new parent, I instinctively shielded him from this sudden movement. And then I realized my shoulder was wet. She had tried to baptize my son like a JFK grassy knoll baptism, and accidentally baptized me a second time. So I don't know, maybe that cancels my infant baptism out. Interesting fun fact about baptism. All four gospels in the Bible agree that Jesus did not baptize him. He called his disciples but didn't baptize them. He exorcised demons from people but didn't baptize them. And when he spoke of baptism, he said he would do it with fire, not water. So I guess it's been merciful of the church not to do that to babies. I'm glad that sneaky priestess didn't try to hurl a fireball at my firstborn child. Just as water knows no personal boundaries, water knows no spiritual boundaries. Water is the common element binding all of the world's religions. They are all related through water. The Christian baptism, which was copied from the Jewish mikveh, the ritualistic washing before prayer in Islam, the sweat lodge of the Lakota, the Hindu wish to be sunk in the Ganges after death, the sacred wells of the Celts. They used to celebrate times of peace by breaking their weapons and throwing them into water. And sometimes they would pray for health or luck or fortune by throwing coins into sacred wells for the water spirits. This pagan tradition continues with wishing wells. Every semester I ask my college students, when you throw a penny into a well and make a wish, who are you talking to? Wouldn't the Christian God be happier if you gave in the church? At the wishing well, you give a coin, a sacrifice, and say your prayer to the ancient water spirits. My college students don't know it, but the wishing well connects them with their pagan European ancestors. Water freely flows through all belief systems, but it belongs to none of them. In the Bible, water is there before in the beginning. If you read it closely, the book of Genesis does not say that God created the water. It was there before he showed up. Similarly, in the Quran, Allah creates all things from water, but does not create the water itself. Here in Western New York, the indigenous, native creation story begins in a world entirely covered with water, and a muskrat dives down to bring up some dirt to the surface. The Mayan, Babylonian, Egyptian, Greek, and Roman creation stories all begin in a swampy chaos. The water was there before the gods arrived and started building. Water is creative. It can also be destructive. Glaciers of ice once tore their way through this land. It was water that carved out the Grand Canyon. It happened really slowly in human time, but in geologic time, it was like a bulldozer on rocket fuel. Like Babe the Blue Ox hopped up on Red Bull, roaring through, digging canyons and pushing up mountains. Now, nature gets angry and throws water at us. Flash floods that can sink whole towns, usually targeting Southerners who refuse to believe in climate change. Water can be hurricanes, tidal waves. Someday, water is going to eat California. Just take a big bite, take the whole thing down. We'll have to airlift our movie stars to Wisconsin. I think we're probably in for a lot more Thor movies after that, from Hollywood, Wisconsin. We used to receive these brochures in the mail. You could buy a big chunk of the Florida coast, cheap. And I don't like Florida. It smells like death. But I couldn't help looking anyway. All right, what's the fine print? What's the scam? But it wasn't the fine print. It was in big letters across the top. Land liquidation sale. So you're trying to sell pieces of land that are going to be under liquid in a few years. Water can be dangerous big, and water can be dangerous small, even a little trickle. My wife's got potted plants. They leak all over the floor. She loves dogs. They leak on the floor. She sprouts babies. They leak on the floor. One of these days, I'm going to walk in, honey, I'm home, and fall through the floor because of all that water damage. Given enough time, a little trickle of water can split a whole mountain. And water can drive you crazy. It's been used as a torture device for centuries. Dunking witches, Japanese drip torture, waterboarding, that thing the sky does to us with snow every year. What's up with that? Water has suggestive power too, deep psychic powers of suggestion. Like I say, imagine Niagara Falls. Envision all that water flowing, tons and tons of water crashing down. And now everybody magically feels that they have to go to the bathroom. I'm almost done. I'll get to the end of this soon. We're here today to celebrate our connection to water. What would we be without it? A little pile of dust and bone. And each of us here has water sources that are sacred to us. Maybe just the bathroom sink where you ritually begin and end each day by brushing your teeth. Maybe the shower where you recharge your electricity and collect your thoughts or sing like nobody can hear you. The water can hear you. Maybe a toilet. Maybe the kitchen faucet where you wash dishes and mumble to yourself about the injustices of the world. Maybe a river or a lake where you like to walk and talk to yourself or someone else. Maybe an ocean where you get a sense of perspective. Water unifies us. We are all part of it. We belong to it. It does not belong to us. Today, we will mingle our sacred waters in acknowledgement of that connection, that unity. Water connects us with all living things, present, past, and future. The water that we carry inside of us today will be the life of other creatures tomorrow. At this time, we are going to share some of our sacred waters. Some of us have brought maybe